All right, let's dive right in. We're about to chart a course through a truly radical new theory of everything. It's a theory that suggests some of the biggest, most stubborn mysteries in science aren't actually separate problems at all. Instead, they might just be symptoms of one single, fundamental mistake in how we look at reality itself.
So let me ask you this. What if these giant, unrelated puzzles, like the missing 95% of our universe, the sheer improbability of life, or even the weird paradox of free will, what if they're all just signposts, all pointing to the same deep flaw in our most basic assumptions about the world?
To really get how this new idea works, we first have to appreciate the scale of the problem we're trying to solve. You see, modern science is facing several really profound crises, and this theory suggests they're all connected, challenging our very understanding of the cosmos.
Let's look at the three big clues. First up, the missing universe. Think about it. We can only account for 5% of everything out there. The rest? We just label it dark matter and dark energy, but we've never actually found the stuff. Then there's the whole improbability of life itself, which, if you run the numbers, just seems to defy the odds of pure random chance. And finally, you've got the paradox of choice, where brain scans can tell what you're going to do a full 10 seconds before you know. Now, the standard approach is to tackle these as separate puzzles. This theory says, no, that's the mistake. They are three clues pointing to one single problem.
So, what's the solution? Well, it starts with a complete rethink of what reality even is. The core idea is simple, but it's a huge shift. Our universe, the one we see and touch, isn't the real deal. It's just a shadow.
Okay, so here's the core shift in thinking. On the left, you've got the standard view, right? A 3D universe where things happen along the arrow of time. We all get that. But the new idea, this geometric origin framework, proposes something way more radical. It says true reality is a static, four-dimensional block, kind of like a crystal that contains the past, present, and future all at once. Our familiar 3D universe is just a shadow being cast by this higher dimensional object.
So, if the 4D reality is static, where does our experience of time come from? Well, the concept is called foliation. Imagine that 4D block is a loaf of bread. Foliation is just the act of slicing it. Each slice is a 3D moment, a single snapshot of the universe. What we feel as the flow of time is just our consciousness moving from one slice to the next, like flipping through the pages of a comic book. Time isn't some fundamental river we're floating down. It's just an effect of how we look at this thing.
And this leads to a pretty profound consequence. The theory basically says that our laws of physics are just syntactic approximations. Think of them as the grammar of our 3D shadow. But the true meaning, the semantic reality, lives in that 4D source. This turns things like dark matter into what's called a Gödel sentence. It's a statement that is totally true in the larger system, but you can never ever prove it using only the rules available inside our limited 3D shadow.
So how does this new model actually build a new picture of our most fundamental forces? Well, if this whole shadow universe idea is going to work, it has to start by redefining gravity itself. And it does it in this really beautiful geometric way.
In this model, gravity is not a force pulling things together. Not at all. It's the geometric tension in the very fabric of our 3D shadow. Imagine our universe is a rubber sheet. Mass isn't like a bowling ball sitting on the sheet. It's more like a point where that sheet is pinned or anchored to the 4D reality above it. And that anchor point creates the curvature in the sheet that you and I experience as gravity.
And boom, right away, this gives us an incredibly elegant solution to one of science's biggest headaches. Dark matter isn't some mysterious, invisible particle we need to spend billions trying to find. It's an illusion. It's a ghost.
Why a ghost? Because it's what the theory calls an informational deficit. It's the gravitational effect of curvature that's happening in the 4D source, but it's kind of bleeding through into our 3D slice. We can feel its gravitational pull holding our galaxies together, but we can never ever find the source of that pull here because the source simply isn't in our dimension. And just like that, you solve the problem perfectly without having to invent any new particles.
Now, this geometric way of thinking doesn't just stop at gravity. The framework takes the same logic to unify all the fundamental forces. And then, it does something truly remarkable. It connects physics directly to biology.
Let's just quickly run through how it redefines all four forces. So we've already seen that gravity is the overall tension of this projection. The theory then describes the weak force, that's the one behind radioactive decay, as a literal twist or a handedness in the 4D source. The strong force, which binds atoms together, is seen as the surface tension of the very bubbles of reality. And finally, electromagnetism is just the simple elastic vibrations of our 3D shadow membrane.
And when you put it all together, you get this. A really powerful unification. All of a sudden, the four fundamental forces are no longer these separate kind of arbitrary fields. They all become different geometric properties, tension, twist, surface tension, and vibration of a single underlying system. One projection from one 4D source creating our 3D shadow.
But this model has even stranger implications. You see, if the future is already part of that static 4D block, just sitting there on a different slice of reality, could our brains somehow access it? And this brings us right back to that paradox of free will.
Check out this timeline. It shows one of the most puzzling findings in modern neuroscience. fMRI scans can literally predict which button a person is going to press up to 10 seconds before they are consciously aware of even making a choice. You can see this readiness potential building in the brain, and then finally the person feels like they've made the call. I mean, how is that even possible?
Well, this geometric framework offers a stunning explanation. Your brain isn't predicting the future, it's accessing the present state of a 4D structure that already includes your future decision. That future event already exists in the static 4D block. The 10-second lag we see is just the distance along that block. It's the number of time slices between the brain's activity and your conscious awareness of it.
And this idea of non-local connection isn't just about our brains. Think about a flock of starlings. They move as one, right? With these coordinated turns that seem to defy the speed of light, almost. The standard view really struggles to explain this. But in this new model, the birds aren't just reacting to each other in 3D. They are all projections of the same 4D source, connected through that higher dimension. This is what allows for what looks like instantaneous coordination, because at the source, they're all part of the same thing.
And that brings us to the final, culminating idea of this whole framework. We've seen how a 3D shadow gets projected and then sliced into what we call time. But what's holding it all together?
And maybe more importantly, what happens when this whole projection engine breaks down?
The answer might lie in a major clue from quantum gravity. Recent research came to a completely paradoxical conclusion that the Hilbert space, which is just a fancy term for the space of all possible states for our universe, is fundamentally one-dimensional. Now, for standard physics, this is nonsense. A 1D space has no room for complexity. But for this theory, it's the ultimate confirmation. It suggests the true fundamental state of the universe is just one single thing, that static 4D block.
You see, this projection from 4D to 3D needs a certain amount of mass and complexity to anchor it, to hold our shadow reality in place. And when that anchor falls below a critical threshold, the projection fails. The orderly slicing of time, the foliation, it all just dissolves. This is what the theory calls the unfoliator engine, and it's a totally new definition of a singularity, like a black hole. It's not a point of infinite density. It's a place where our shadow reality collapses and dissolves back into its source.
And so, we're left with the ultimate question. We've just explored a new map of reality, one where time is an illusion, gravity is just tension, and our entire universe is a mere projection. If any of that is true, if our whole existence is just a shadow on a cave wall, it forces us to ask the final, most important question of all. What is casting it?